Welcome, Annette. How are you? So great to see you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you and meet you.
Yes, yes, you too. So, as you know, I think you're a little bit familiar with our podcast. We basically love to hear people's stories about how they came across mindfulness, the challenges they were facing at the time, and then their journey as to how they found or in the process of finding the practices that work best for you. So maybe we can start at the beginning if you want to tell me a little bit about when you started, your first time that you encountered mindfulness, what was going on in your life, and what was it that, piqued your interest about it?
So we definitely don't have enough time, but to say really quickly, it started about 10 years ago, give or take. I was in heavy therapy at that point. Pretty raw human breakdown, failed marriage, lots of health issues, family issues, just life in general, very overwhelming. At that time, I had a child with special needs and another son to raise. And my psychologist is like, you're just beating yourself with the monkey mind. And that's how meditation came about. I've always kind of dabbled in it, but nothing consistent, nothing very heavy. And I never had a role model, to, venture me into that world. And coming from a very strict Roman Catholic church, anything out of those practices is a cult, or against the church. So I just always battled with like the confusion of it. And then my psychologist mentioned Insight Timer. And he said, I just want you to go on to listen to this 1 2-minute poem. And if you like it, join. And if you don't, we'll find something else that resonates with you. So the poem was called She Let Go. And I don't know
Huh.
if you know it. Okay. So
I
it's an
know, I
amazing.
just love the title.
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't, so I'm going to look it up. She Let
Yeah, She
Go.
Let Go.
Okay.
And so many people had it out there. One in particular that resonated with me was John Sadiq, who is very well known on IT. And so I got into it, not heavily, but enough that it was the most I've ever done. And I did that for about 2 years. And my ex thought that it was a dating app of some sort. And it was a big fight. So I wound up getting off of it just to avoid
Mm.
whatever. But in the time that I was off of it, I just was experiencing more human breakdown. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to get on and I'm going to find whatever works for me. And again, I was just grasping at anything that was coming my way. And little by little, I felt an internal battle and I didn't know what this was. And so I started venturing off into some, podcast and webinars. I did a 4-month leadership course that completely cracked the shell. And in that time, I met Mitch. And
Wow.
Mitch,
Mhm.
I was part of Mitch's circle on IT, and he was part of the Unified Mindfulness Group. And I am who I am. I have a very big, loving heart. And for me, that what's always made me whole and feel loved is really by supporting others and helping others any which way I can. And he saw something in that and in me and the comments that I would leave or the encouragement that I would give somebody. And then here we are now 2 years later, and all these techniques that he got to introduce me to, and the world of Shinzen Young and all these things that I know if it wasn't for Mitch, I may have tapped it, but I would have never have dove into it as much as I've have. And coming out 2 years later, even though it's still a process, right? Because every day
Mhm.
is work, 24/7. But as I was saying to you before, I can't believe how naturally the techniques come to me. And my brain knows that it's not even fight or flight anymore. It's, oh, rain. Oh, I have
Mhm.
this feeling. Oh, I have this emotion. Well, now let's sit. And what technique resides with you. And it's
Yeah,
just been an amazing journey.
that's
Amazing.
beautiful. And when you go back to when you first went on Insight Timer, what was it about the poem that made you feel curious about continuing to find some techniques, and also what were some of the benefits that you were experiencing at that initial time that kind of kept you curious? Do you
Sure.
remember? It
So
was a while
the
ago.
curiosity, crazy as it is, because I really do remember when you listen to the poem, you're going to really understand what I'm saying. It goes against everything I've ever was. Oh, you're supposed to lash out. Oh, you're supposed to get angry. Oh, you're supposed to cry and rant and rave. It's normal. This is what we do. But when you
Yes.
get really into deep emotions, oh no, we don't want any of that. Da, da, da. But in the poem, he says she didn't have to tell anybody. She didn't need to call her girlfriends. She just looked at herself one day, and again, whatever I'm saying to you now, when you hear it, it's going to be like, oh, and every time anyone ever listens to it, because I highly recommend it to everybody, he or she, everybody always comes back like that is the most powerful thing that you can listen to for 2 minutes. So my
Wow.
curiosity really came from that. Like, how don't I tell anybody how desperate I am for help? Or how don't I scream out, and do this and do that? And then I started listening to mindfulness, the breath.
Hmm.
you know Everybody has this idea of meditation that it's quieting the monkey mind, and I've learned that it's not about quieting, it's about sitting and accepting the monkey mind. Because
Okay.
once I learn to sit and accept, then all of a sudden I'm one with it. I feel like
Hmm.
we have a relationship where I'm like, okay, we're going to do nothing. I'm going to sit at my table because I have a beautiful setup now, and it just made me want to dive in deeper, because then the people I was meeting along the way, I'm like, okay, so I know my story is not so great, but wow, yours is so much challenging than mine. And how are you standing there smiling? How are you
Hmm.
still persevering? How do you live as if you don't have the baggage and the scars, and the stories? Now I know it's the baggage, the scars, and the stories that make you. So
Yeah.
it's just a process of learning something entirely different than anything you've ever known,
So
and
true, right? Hmm.
yeah, and again, especially Westerners, we have this one idea of meditation. And it's funny, like when people say it to me now, I'm like, oh, come sit with me. Let me say a few things to you. Because it's so different from your normal meditation that everybody does, that we're supposed to sit in some funky position. And everybody says that. I've heard you say it. I've heard Dave say it. I heard Mitch say it. And it's not, because I could do it doing dishes when my son is having a meltdown and he's flailing arms and kicking and screaming. I know that it's about the energy we possess. When I go into a technique, my energy changes no matter what. And
Hmm.
that is so, so beneficial when you have a child with special needs, because you feel challenged in it. It's very trying some. And then that
Yes.
applies to everything in life. Everything.
Yeah.
Road rage, the nasty person at the supermarket, everything. Family. So it's
For
amazing.
sure. Yeah. And it sounds like what resonated with you was the sense that you could finally relax, right? Like we work so hard to keep ourselves together and what we should or shouldn't be. And mindfulness gave you this opportunity to just, this is me, this is this is what's going on. So that's so beautiful that you were able to tap into that early and then find the techniques and the people that supported you, because that both are important, right? And maybe you can tell us a bit about that. Like, what were some of the techniques that resonated with you at the beginning? And you mentioned that you met people that supported you. So how did that work and help along the path?
Sure. Yeah. So it really did start with breath work.
Mm-hmm.
And that is fundamental, because when I actually learned how to breathe, I said, I can't believe I've not been breathing all this time. There were even
Mm-hmm.
times in certain sessions that people would look at me and be like, breathe. And I'm like, how do you know I'm not breathing? But it's the energy that you possess too, when you're static and you're clinging on to that.
Yes.
So a lot of the basis was within the breath work. But when Mitch started teaching me see, hear, feel, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I felt kind of all over the place. And again, I know because it's new, so I needed time and practice. But I have 5 autoimmunes, and the see, hear, feel was coming more into my own pain than I ever realized. So see, hear, feel, I think I resonated with the most in the beginning because it was so more than what I expected. I thought it was up here, but I was feeling it throughout, and every time something would happen that I thought was catastrophic and, like the end of the world. And Mitch is like, where are your techniques?
Uh-huh.
And he's like, you have to constantly go back to the techniques. And once you do, and then you start feeling it and seeing it and hearing the difference, you're like, aha, and you want to go back to it. But for me, I think 3 really big ones were feel rest, do nothing, and nurture positive. Feel
Yes.
rest because I'm on the go 24/7. And even if I'm still, I'm not restful. And
Mm-hmm.
all the energies that stirs up. Do nothing because I'm always doing something. And nurture positive because even Mitch knows that being loving and kind to myself is one of my biggest hurdles. I've only really, probably only in like maybe the 6 months to a year, have really dove deep into nurture positive and everything. I do a lot of mirror work, positive affirmations, but it really stemmed for nurture positive because I'm in the middle of a pretty rough divorce after 21 years of marriage. And it's unfortunate because it is. But there's so much attached to that it makes me not revert, but go back to the stories of not good things, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of undoes some of the scars and the wounds and whatnot. But that nurture positive cleans it out, puts the
Yes.
healing cream on it, knows that if it's a bullet hole, you're not going to put a band-aid over it, and all these things. And now, like I was saying this morning, everything I do, my brain just automatically does it. So if
Yeah.
there's a part of me that knows it's in distress, my brain and my body work simultaneously with each other. That okay, and I'll do rain. I mean, it's a huge part of it, and whether from Tara or from Mitch or other people that I've worked with, they're like, you got to investigate where that's coming from because you think it's the moment, but it's not. It's probably from somewhere back there,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And the people that supported me, saw that in me, and they're like, you have to accept you for all you are, everything you've been through, but there was always shame and guilt and judgment, and something in leadership that came out in TME was no shame, no blame, no judgment, no guilt. And so then I started picking up all the things with the other webinars that I've done, the support groups, what came out in leadership. I tell Mitch all the time for 2 years, he either says it and then it happens in life, or it happens in life and then we talk about it on the next class. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, it's powerful.
It is powerful. And there's so much wisdom in what you shared because it sounds like the breath was a really good entryway, and that you also noticed, oh my goodness, I'm not breathing. It's this natural thing that we think we should do that we're doing. And then when you bring your attention to it, it can be very liberating for some people to realize that. It can be scary at times, the breath. So it like a time for some, it sounds like it worked for you. For some people, it might become more of a thought thing, like, oh, am I breathing right? What am I doing? So the breath, and then the see, hear, feel is almost like the foundation, right? So when we become overwhelmed, things are hard, everything seems like it's falling apart. And then what do we do? And to just remember that, oh, we have this technique, like everything that we're experiencing is only in 3 places. It's either something you see or something you hear or something you feel. And I also found that just revolutionary, right? Because it's like, oh no, but this thing is really challenging. But it's like, wait, it's still just see, hear, and feel. Like it's crazy. So that's wonderful. And then the other thing I heard you say, which has been true to my experience as well, is that these techniques of just noticing, like we just notice the breath or just notice what you see, hear, and feel, are very important. They're kind of a foundation. But there's this other element, like that's the insight element. And then there's this other element of compassion, of learning to love ourselves and to bring warmth into the whole experience. It can become very dry and very hard. And for some people, I know I've experienced this, it's like another way to beat yourself up. It's like, oh no, I didn't see, hear, feel, I lost it.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I'm not doing it right. So the fact that you were able to tune into some rest, some do nothing, just letting yourself experience what's happening without trying to control it, and the nurture positive, how can I cultivate some warmth, some kindness, some love towards myself, and seeing how that affects the people around you. That it's not like, we were talking before how many of us were taught to not be selfish, and to worry about everybody else, but not us. But actually, when we bring love to ourselves, it's only benefits everybody, because who doesn't need more love, right? Who
Yeah,
doesn't love a
absolutely.
loving person? Who doesn't love love?
Yeah. And it's
So
funny that you say that, because even in this awareness, I've said numerous times to Mitch, oh, it's somebody I've always wanted to be, and I'm like, and this way I'm presenting this being, my mother's convinced I'm in a cult, no matter what. She's like, it's a good cult, because I could see the change in you, you didn't shave your head, you're not giving money away, and I'm like, listen, if this is a cult of love and it's changed me from everything that I couldn't think I could change from, if it could, stop the old stories, because, these stories we tell ourselves, no one tells us stop. What do you like about that story? And through see, hear, feel, and especially Rain, it gets you to dig deep on your own, because you can't lie to yourself. When I look at myself in the mirror, I could lie, but the person in the mirror knows I'm lying, and that for me, and even in conjunction with physical pain, that's where a lot of feel flow came up. Because when I did a lot of too much, and then my body would pay for it. But then if something outside would happen, then my emotions would go with it, and then once I really got the full practice of feel flow, I'm like, oh, so I could do it with like see, hear, feel, and I could do it in and I could do it out, and then I could flow, whether it's a see, whether it's a hear, whether it's a feel. And that helped me then 10 times more with the pain, because I'm like, when we're in pain, we're like, oh, no, go away, go away. And if it's an everyday thing, you just build more resistance, and you do get angry because your mind doesn't hurt, but your body is, and they're not aligned. But when I feel flow, and if it's a thought, then I learn, like, well, this is what Mitch is teaching me, and this is what is about feel flow, that if I could do it with the thought, then why can't I do it with this pain that I feel? And then so things that he was even having me do, and now again, the techniques, how naturally they come to me, and so like on rainy days, I know immediately it's going to rain 2 days before it rains. My body lets me know every time. And so immediately now I will just do what I do. I will feel in, then I will feel out, then I will feel rest, and then I will feel flow. That I strictly do when it comes to physical pain.
Okay.
Then something will happen and I'll get distracted, or I'll get up and start doing whatever. And then all of a sudden, when I realize it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm moving and I'm not holding my breath. I'm not wincing. And to me, that's amazing, because when you start seeing it, even in the most minute ways, in such a big area of your life, you sit and you say, well, it's happening. And I never thought that this was possible. So can you imagine what's really possible? And that's what's so beautiful about these techniques, which is not taught, in other mindfulness practices, like they have practices where my support groups, it's about sitting, grounding, connecting, and then, yes, feeling, being aware of your surroundings, whether it be internally, externally, but the techniques are not broken down like
Right.
unified mindfulness.
Yes. And so did you mention that you use the rain technique as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that in case there's some listeners who haven't heard of
Sure.
it? Yeah.
So, as most of us know, RAIN is to recognize, accept, investigate, and nourish. And Mitch would always say, you got RAI really good, but that N, and that is the most important thing because that nourishing, after all the work you do, you have to do it.
Mhm.
We are our own worst enemies. A lot of us Westerners are like that. There are not many people that I meet that don't relentlessly beat themselves down. So when you get to nourish, it does feel so foreign, but when I sit and I recognize, like, all right, something's going on, I don't know what it is, so let's sit. Where do I feel it? How big is it? What color is it? Where is it? And then when I accept it, whatever it is, I'm just going to sit here fully and wholly and accept this. It's
Mhm.
not me, it's just this moment in time. And that in itself, just doing that little thing already makes me feel the shift. And then I investigate, and I can investigate all day, every day, because there's always something that something else is attached to, and like I was saying before,
Mhm.
you think it's this moment, but 9 out of 10 times it's something from the past,
Yes. Mhm.
and then the nourish, like I said, it's just such a beautiful thing when you could physically be okay with hugging yourself, telling yourself how much you love yourself, how much you're accepting yourself of this moment, of any other moment, you know because you think you have to get that externally.
Yes.
We're not really raised with everything you ever seek outside is always within. you know Most of the people I know were not raised like that, or that go find it in a god or in a statue or in a building, and so on and so forth. And so that nourish just rain in itself. And then, of course,
Mhm.
Mitch's technique with soda. I don't know if you're familiar with his soda.
No, no, what's that one?
I'm sorry if I blew that up, but Mitch had put this thing together called soda, which is stop, observe, detach, and act.
Beautiful.
And
Mhm.
so I'm an Italian New Yorker. So, of course, I fly off the handle immediately. But in soda, especially with my ex-husband, and
Okay.
some family
Mhm.
members that there's just a lot of turmoil with, soda has been immense hand in hand with rain. It's just been
Okay.
immense to me personally. My experience with both of them, they're hand in hand now. There's a lot of times I can't even do soda without rain and vice versa, especially the soda now, because as soon as I say stop, I
Stop.
stop.
Yes.
That's it, and then even and it helps because I don't react. I literally just don't react anymore. I may feel something stirring, but all the techniques, all the tools that I've been given, this starts going before this starts going now. And to me,
Nice.
out of everything besides the nourishing and the loving, that is monumental because that was something that I've always wanted to change and work on and improve, just within myself, but in everybody I interact with. I mean, I have this child with special needs that is all about action. He may not
Mhm.
understand the words. So now when he sees it, he sits and he does
Uh-huh.
3 deep breaths and he puts his
Wow.
hand up to say, stop,
Stop.
observe,
Mhm.
detach. So it's beautiful.
It really is. I think that's the hardest part for most of us when we're angry or upset. We just want to react. We feel like we must react, but no, if we can just stop, for a second. And I like, so stop, observe, detach. So just, I like what you said also, that it's not you. It's just, this is what's happening in the moment. Even if there's rage and whatever the thoughts are, this is what's happening. And then act is the last one. So only then you act. Yeah. So then you come back. And so it's not also, it's different from like not looking at it. I'm just going to walk away and I'm going to just pretend this isn't happening. It's like, no, it's just a break. And then we act from almost like a deeper place where we
Yeah.
can be more effective.
And that
And,
place is a place of love and not reaction, because, and
yes.
that's what Mitch brought to me. He's like, you're not emotionally reacting. You're just responding when you do,
Yes.
and there's such a difference between the two.
Yeah. And I wonder if you've seen, because I know I noticed this with my kids, that it can de-escalate. Like that there's usually any conflict. What I see now is I used to just think, oh, they're not behaving, but it's both of us, right? So when I can just stop a little bit, then they can calm. Do you find that with your son as
Absolutely.
well?
I have
Yeah.
actually a 25-year-old son as well. And I
Okay.
noticed it in him because, 25-year-olds, they're invincible, they're untouchable, they know everything. And he was commenting on a subject that I really truly felt was not his position to comment on. I mean, we could all have our
Mhm.
opinions or not. And the more he spoke, oh, I felt it. Oh, I felt it. I was like, oh, okay, let's just reign right now. Because I felt the fury building up. And so as he was talking and I was doing rain, like I was just trying to investigate where this anger was coming from.
Mm.
Was it directly at him? Was he saying something that was really true and going against everything I believed in? Like what story, whatever it was. By the time he was like, Ma, are you listening to me? And I'm like, oh, I heard every word you said. But he's waiting for that explosion. He's
Yes.
waiting for
Fascinating.
her, his mom, that he's known to be a certain way all this time, to be like, oh, she's brewing big time. And I said, I'm just going to take a deep breath. And I think you should take a deep breath. And I said, if that's your opinion, I got to respect it. It's your opinion. My opinion may not agree with that opinion, but we could leave it off.
Mhm.
And I've never done something like that. So he's kind of just
Wow.
still standing there like, do I walk away? Do I ask her, is it over? And I knew he was still waiting for that backlash. I knew
Mhm.
he was waiting for that emotional reaction. And then my other son, Christian, kind of came into the mix. And then all of a sudden it just died down. And then he kind of looked at me and I was like, what? And he's like, nah, yeah, you're changing, Ma. He's like, I see it. And I'm like, we all have that in us, but how
Yeah.
that change initially, just even saying to yourself, even if you don't have these techniques, just take a deep breath. 3,
Mhm.
right? Because everything we do in 3, right? And then just say, why am I angry? I'm talking
Mhm.
to my son. This is someone I love. Like, just hold on to it. You don't need to push it on the side. Just be with it. We are
Yeah.
always taught to fight against the
Mhm.
tide, right? So to say,
Yes. Mhm.
once you learn to just hold it, see it, feel it, hear it, be with it, it's just so different. And it makes you want to do the practices even more because you could see it for yourself. Like, oh, something just recently happened with my ex-husband. And I went off on this little thing in my head. And then I went into the mirror and I get it out. And then I do nurture positive. And then I was telling Mitch about it. And he was like, what? And so you told your ex, and I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I told myself all that. And he goes, oh, so you didn't tell your ex any of it? And I was like, no. And he's like, I'm so proud of you. And to me, that's huge. It's huge because one, it's habitual. How much what we do, we don't even realize that maybe if our mind doesn't want to do it, we just do it because that's all we've known to do. And
Mhm.
then when you're taught something differently, that's when the techniques come in. Every single time, whether it be my mother and the cult that I'm in, whether it be my ex-husband and about what this horrible person I am, or what other
Mhm.
family dynamics, whatever it may be, telling a doctor things I see in my son that he doesn't see. And now I need to believe him because he's the doctor,
Yeah.
which gets frustrated and angry because nobody wants to listen to you. But then when I stand in my truth and I start doing all these techniques, and again, the micro hits, everything that we've
Yes.
been taught, it changes and shifts my energy so much that it almost not forces, but just makes the receiving end attuned to that, that
Yeah.
they're like, and then they feel your energy. And then all of a sudden, when you start speaking to them, it's something entirely different than they expected. So now they're more open to receive, they're more open to hear. So it's just wonderful.
Yeah. That's so great. So great. I wanted to touch back on, you mentioned feel flow and how it's helped you with your pain, with physical pain. So, is that something you could walk us through? How do you do feel flow and how does it help with the pain? Because I think people would be interested in that.
Sure, absolutely. So
Hmm.
like I was saying before, when we experience physical pain, our brain just does this thing of like, oh no, not now. I'm too busy, and we know that push and shove, the more we resist, the more it persists. Everybody knows that. What you think about, you bring about. We all know this, whether you're part of TME, Unified Mindfulness, or anything, just facts of life. So, so I have psoriatic arthritis for one of my autoimmunes and Lyme disease. And so they're the most battling ones because if you have a flare up in Lyme, your arthritis is through the roof. And sometimes the arthritis can just manifest, excuse me, any of the Lyme symptoms. And I've been lucky because my sister has horrific Lyme disease. So,
Mhm.
but I would love for her to learn the techniques one day and just pray that I know that they'll work with her as they worked with me. So let's just say I get out of bed, and usually in the morning, as soon as I wake up, I thank God for just waking up, And so Mitch is telling, really incorporate intentions, as soon as you come to consciousness, these intentions that we create throughout the day. So immediately upon waking, I know my body. I'm just very used to it, so I know what to expect. And so I pray for an active, healthy, day. I don't want to say pain-free or things like that. There's just certain words I omit. But normally I get out of bed, and if I have a very low cushion at my meditation table, and so getting down and getting up from that can be difficult. So as soon as I get down, I'll go into certain techniques, certain practices, and I switch them around because I do whatever comes forth, like I don't really
Okay.
sit and plan it now. In the beginning, I did just so I learned the flow of the techniques and everything. And then I will get to my source of pain, and I'll talk to it,
Mm.
and so as we know, like the breath, how we let it come in, even if we hold it for 3 seconds, we still have to let it flow out. So why can't we do that with pain? Why can't we find out where that pain is? So let's say it's always in my hip joints, right? Especially that I run, I walk, I jog a lot. So I have lots of hip issues. And so I'll feel it on my hips. And I'll speak to them loving kindly, like I feel you, I see you, I hear you're hurting, and you're here for this moment. And then I'll just go into closing my eyes and going right to that source of pain and seeing it. It's for me, it's visual work, it's that mental screen we have when our eyes are closed. And I'll let the pain come in, and I'm trying to embrace it. I'm trying to be one with it rather than pushing it away. And then I always say to myself, for every thought, everything I see, hear, and feel that I'm letting come in because I'm letting it flow in, well, now I get
Mm.
to let it flow out. And when
Yeah.
I tell myself that, the pain is flowing with it. And then if
Yes.
it's really, really big, if it's a really, really hard day, I'll do, well, how big is it? What shape is it? What
Mm.
color is it? And I owe Mitch so much gratitude in that because I've never done work with that. And then it's so crazy because once I started to do it with him, then I was finding it everywhere else, about sizing it and coloring it and almost naming it. And then I
Yeah.
just the visual work that I do in my mind of holding it and letting
Mhm.
it flow out, that's a game changer. It also came in conjunction with him wanting me to read a book. And that book was by Dr. Joe Dispenza called You Are the Placebo. And
Mhm.
so as he was teaching me, he also was having me, like he does these great things that always have such a beautiful way of always being intertwined with each other. And it was a game changer. It was a
Yeah.
game changer because from that point on, I was probably on 7 different man-made medications. And here
Wow.
I am less than 2 years and I'm on one, and I'm doing more
Wow.
physical activity than I probably have in over a decade.
That's so, so amazing. And I love this idea of of letting it flow, that it's like something that comes and it goes. And it also brings me back to, at one point earlier, you mentioned that you went to the mirror and I think you were angry with your ex-husband. So you said it. So is that part of also like not keeping it in your system, right? Like getting out. So would you say to yourself what you would have said to your ex-husband? Is that what you do? So like
Absolutely.
letting
I'm
it
a
flow.
very, very verbal woman. There
That's
is not
awesome. I've
much
never
hair on my
done that, but
tongue.
I love that idea.
Yes, yes. So through one of my supporters, so I'm again part of IT. I'm pretty big part of it now. A lot of people do know me. I go by Anika in there. Anika is Annette in Sanskrit, so it's
Oh,
resonated with me
beautiful.
so much more than just being given like a spiritual name. And it kind of came funny about how that name came up, but we'll talk about that later. And so one of my mantra teachers said, "Oh, there's this woman. You should listen to her podcast. She's really cool. She's down to earth." And she saw something in me like Mitch did. And she said, "I just want to offer you, maybe sessions of love, like whatever we could do." And in one of those sessions came out mirror work, which
Okay.
came out in leadership. So how everything always kind of comes out. And in leadership, it was very hard for me because you're doing it also in a class of 100 people and holding up a mirror.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, awkward. But I've never had whatever it is that it takes to stand in front of the mirror and say whatever needs to be said, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Or like Mitch says, it's only good, there's nothing bad, right? The unpleasant or the pleasant. And so once I got past the mirror work, I realized that if there was a confrontation with my ex, it wasn't a sentence, it was a whole like 2-page email. And even when I would
Mhm.
look back, I'm like, this is just so unnecessary. Like for me, not even for him. Like, why
Yeah.
do I
Yeah.
have to beat myself and get it all out again? So she had suggested take it to the mirror. She said, I say take it to the mat. She goes, you told me to take it to the mirror. I'm like, okay, I'll take it to the mirror. She goes, whatever you do, you start off by saying, I love you. I see you. I honor you. Right.
Hmm.
And however you are in this moment, I just accept completely, wholly, wholeheartedly. And then I'm like, all right, we need to have a conversation. I'm a little pee off right now, and I'm angry and I'm feeling frustrated. And it's literally have a conversation with yourself, right? Which is just something that
Wow.
we're not used to doing. And I'm like, once I realized that I got all these things out, no matter what it is, and then I finished it with Nurture Positive,
Hmm.
my day was lighter. Every other interaction with him, because he likes to stir the pot, whatever it may
Yes.
be, because he's waiting for that reaction from me. It's all he's also ever known. So I have to understand that now. And
Yeah.
now that there's no reaction and he doesn't know what to do with it. But for me, it's the internal thing. That's so when the next time something does arise, I'm like, oh, I know what practice I could do, and no one
Yeah.
knows about it. I know I could go to the mirror. I know I could cry,
Yeah.
scream, curse, say what I say, have no judgment, have no shame, love myself, and then walk away and have a wonderful day. And imagine
Love
if
it.
everybody could do that and not
Yeah.
explode to the person that they want to explode in, but you're still getting it out. So you're not harboring this illness, because
Yes.
when we harbor, what does it do? It manifests into autoimmunes, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It festers. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's amazing and such a great way to honor that shadow part, the parts that we have put away and haven't looked at, that I'm inspired to try it, to get more of it out. Like it's okay, like let it almost like, I heard Ashley once rain as the A can even be like amplified. Like if you're feeling angry, like let it be as big as it wants to be, as long as you're not going out like and reacting with it, right? and
Yep.
and like you say, I think these kinds of practices could heal our world, like all these wars and conflicts, because we're just putting that out on each other instead of just giving it back to the earth and letting it
Right, because we always
transform
we always
into
have this.
something else.
Yeah, oh,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Because we always have this thing that you did this to me.
Mm-hmm.
You did
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
So I should lash at you and tell you what you did wrong. But like we've learned, anything that we seek in the unpleasant or it's all from inside, you
Yes.
know? And if everyone, I always tell Mitch, if it changed me the way it did internally, because I don't have to seek the validation now externally. I
Yes.
know what it's doing. I know what I'm not doing, you know? And then I always say, wow, if it did this for me, can you fathom what it could do worldwide, the world we would
Yeah.
be living in
Yes.
now, of
Yeah.
patience and love and kindness and understanding and empathy and sympathy rather than judgment and, oh, I'm better than you. And, it's silliness. And
Yeah.
where he says it's so simple, yet it can be difficult, but
Yes.
the benefits are immeasurable.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Anything else you want to share with our listeners about where you are now, the work you're doing, anything at all?
Yes. So in this new world that I've been exposed to, everyone that I'm surrounded by is always telling me, oh, there's something that you have to do to get you out into the public,
Mhm.
that there's just a group of women and men, single moms, moms with children with special needs, those coming out of really bad divorces, and so on and so forth, that there's so much more to my story. There's a lot of baggage. And I always keep saying, and I'll say it a zillion times, that I can't believe how much has changed in 2 years. I can't fathom what 20 years would be like from now. And I was there just a few years ago, even though, so when I started IT, yes, the star collection was a big thing for me, because every time you meditate 10 consecutive days, you get another star. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But then I stopped doing it and I made a vow to myself, just get through 365 days. If you could just make that vow and that promise and really keep it, because only you and I know about it, then let's see where it goes. Today, I celebrate 1,452 consecutive days of meditating, not only
Wow.
within myself, but on IT as well. And I was there before that saying, I'll never quiet the monkey mind. I'll never become accepting of the monkey mind. I can never get to where I am because of everything that I've been through. What's so special about me that I have this
Mhm.
gift that people see that I don't see? And, the story goes on and on and on. And I'm here to say to whoever is listening to me, to you, to Mitch, to Dave, that it is possible, right? Every time I tell my story and it gives another woman or a man courage to tell theirs, and I can't believe theirs is what they're saying.
Yeah.
And yet they're here doing the same work that I am and that the techniques that we're learning. And look how we're all thriving. We're healthier now. We're happier now. We're grounded. We're connected. We're aligned with the universe and with each other. And if it's possible for me, then it's possible for you. I don't care what your story is. I don't care where you came from, the walk of life, how bad it's been, how good it's been, right? We all have this innate want to find peace and love and accepting of ourselves and acceptance of others. These techniques show you that. This practice, this world, unified mindfulness in particular, has opened doors I never dreamed of. And to hopefully be out there coaching, counseling, teaching, guiding, hanging out. I don't care what label we put, just
Yeah.
sharing
Yes.
the techniques, and that it is possible. Everything we've ever wanted is so possible.
So beautiful. Yeah. Just today, I was thinking about that. It's almost like you found gold right within
Oh,
yourself. And you're like, oh my God, you have gold too. Like, we have to let everybody know, like, the gold is here, right?
I
And
always
trust.
tell Mitch, like, where have you been all my life? Like, where has it
Yeah.
been? But I know it had to come in divine timing. I probably
Mhm.
would have not have been receptive to this 4 or 5 years ago at all. I
That's
probably
so
would have thought it was a cult.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but it's a cult that I'm honored to be a part of now, you know. It's just beautiful, and it's life changing, and I just want everybody to know that you sitting there, no, not me, no, not me, no, yes, you.
Yes.
Yes, you, I promise. Yes, you.
Beautiful. Thank you. And
Oh,
would
it's
you
such
like
my
to
honor.
share? Yeah, such a pleasure. Maybe we can end, if you wouldn't mind, guiding us through your favorite micro hit. Do you have something that you love to do, a little micro hit?
Sure,
You can
sure.
guide us all to close us off. Thank
So
you.
I'm resonating with nurture positive right now. I don't know why, but that was the first thing that popped in my head when you said it. So, all right. So we just take a deep breath in through your nose for 3 seconds, and then we want to hold for 3 seconds, and then when we want to release through our mouth for 3 seconds. And here we go. And just sit and just stay with that breath. Just feel how good the breath feels coming in through your nose and into your lungs, spreading throughout your body. And just feel the love that the breath brings in to your heart, to your organs, running that beautiful oxygen through your blood. And as I sit here and I think of all the love, I think of the love I have for you, Paula, for Mitch, for Dave, for Shinzen, for everyone watching this. How proud I am of myself, that I'm here, I am thriving, I am happy, I am whole, I accept myself in every way, I honor myself, I love myself, I am kind to myself, I am patient to myself. I am worthy of all good things, and this love that I take in with my breath, I release on my breath, and I share with all of you. Mm.
So beautiful.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, Annette. I'm so excited to see where your journey continues and to be a part of it in any way I can.
Thank you, Paula. I really am humbled and honored. Don't justify the feeling I have. Grateful.